Okay, this video is why are high-fat diets so bad? Nathan Pritikin, who reviewed all the literature on fat, said fat is bad. All types of fat are bad. Dr. McDougall said fat is the biggest toxin in the Western diet. Nathan Pritikin also wrote about one of his theories of disease. He called it lipotoxicity, the toxicity of fat, lipotoxemia, elevated lipids in the blood. And so I'm going to, take some of the things Nathan Pritikin said, and I'm going to expand on them because, more information is available now. He was writing around 1980. Okay, now we've got, 45 years of additional information. Okay, so first of all, like Dr. McDougall says, the more fat you eat, the fatter you get. The fat you eat is the fat you wear on your body. It's absorbed straight from its baseline structure into your body fat as the same type of fatty acid. Again, you can biopsy a person's fat on their body and it'll be representative of what they eat in their diet. The body does not change it much from absorption to placing it into your bodily fat stores. And it works really well because it's hydrophobic. It stores without water. So you can store tons of fat without needing a lot of water. Like in the liver, when you store glycogen, you have to store it with water. So you can't store much. You can only have a day's worth, 2 days worth at the most, of glycogen stored in your liver. But you can store, a couple of months of fat on your body to get you through starvation. So it was good to have fat to get through the winter, but it ain't good in the modern world where people are fat slobs with all these other diseases. Okay, the fatter you are, your fat converts some of your testosterone into estrogen, so your estrogen levels will be elevated. They're also elevated because high-fat diets are low-fiber diets. Dietary fiber feeds the good gut bacteria. When you don't have the dietary fiber, you get more bad gut bacteria. The bad gut bacteria have more of the enzyme glucuronidase, which deconjugates the estrogen from our body, excreted by the liver into the bile, and when it's deconjugated, it gets reabsorbed into the body. So high-fat diets make you more feminine. They make you more estrogenic. Not good, okay? Next thing is they stick the red blood cells together, so they cause hypertension. And we talked about this in my recent lecture at Be Green with Amy. I go through my new theory of hypertension, but basically the two established theories of hypertension are number one, high-fat diets sticking the red blood cells together so your blood becomes thicker. You have to pump at a higher pressure. Also, dietary sodium vasoconstricting the system. And high-fat diets are usually high-sodium diets. In addition, the lack of dietary fiber means that you're going to have all these leaky gut problems, and those are going to contribute to hypertension, as I describe in that lecture in great detail. Okay, next is diabetes. Diabetes, the number one cause of diabetes is insulin resistance due to a high-fat diet. Okay, high levels of fat, they paralyze the inner mitochondrial membrane. Dr. McDougall describes it as paralyzing the insulin receptor, and that's just because the inner mitochondrial membrane sends a message to the insulin receptor saying, nope, we don't want any more glucose coming into these skeletal muscle cells. And that's been proven by the work of Gerald Shulman with nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy to show the first detectable finding with insulin resistance is the accumulation of fat in skeletal muscle cells. And it's been known for a long time, both from J. Shirley Sweeney studies through Hemsworth and all the other ones, Rabinowitz and all the others, that high-fat diets cause insulin resistance and diabetes. It's also known in animal studies. What do you feed an animal to make it diabetic? You feed it a high-fat diet. Okay, so it goes on and on. The greatest paper ever written on diabetes was the Michael Brownlee paper, Unifying Theory of Diabetes Complications, 2004. He won the Banting Award for that. And anyways, I think you can get that at adajournals.org. He talks about high-fat paralyzing the internal mitochondrial membrane, leading to, the gradient goes too high, it goes over 150 negative millivolts, and then it starts to reverse direction, and basically the shit hits the fan. Krebs cycle backs up, glycolysis backs up, and he goes through all the complication pathways from that point forward. But again, what begins it all? The high-fat diet. Okay, then of course hypertension and diabetes are the gateway diseases to causing atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis is a blood clot. Yeah, when all your red blood cells are stuck together already because of the high-fat diet, and then you got all the additional complications of diabetes, your blood's more prone to clotting and plugging up your arteries. It plugs up the arteries in your heart, coronary artery disease, that's the most common cause of death in the Western world. Plugs up the arteries in your brain, intracranial atherosclerosis. You also get atherosclerosis in the artery, the big artery in the neck, the carotid artery. All those things accelerate your speed towards cognitive decline. They also accelerate aging because you're going to get some increase in insulin-like growth factor, which is going to cause increased activation of mTOR, mammalian target rapamycin, like a building contractor waiting to have its available materials. it tells the cell to replicate. So you're going to accelerate cell replication with these high-fat diets. Not good. That can also accelerate cancer growth, okay? Cognitive decline, you plug up the arteries in the brain, you get stupid, okay? Diabetes, hypertension, they all decrease a person's cognitive function level. There's a mechanism of amyloid clotting related to leaky gut. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Douglas Kell and Etheresia Pretorius are the two scientists who did the most work to figure that out. Also, the Yamashima theory. Tetsumori Yamashima was a Japanese neuroscientist who tried to figure out why are so many Japanese people becoming demented, and he came to the conclusion the main reason was nowadays they're eating way too much fried food. The omega-6 cooking oils, through lipid peroxidation, they get converted into hydroxynonenal, a toxic aldehyde. That activates calpain to digest heat shock protein that's needed to chaperone proteins to the lysosomes and stabilize the lysosomes in your neurons and your brain cells. When the lysosomes break apart, cathepsin from the lysosomes digests the cell. So the bottom line is omega-6 fats are screwed, okay? You don't want to eat them. Okay, and then all the major eye diseases are basically related to blood flow problems. I have a mnemonic for them. I call it CDAHG, C-DAHG. So cataracts, diabetes, age-related macular degeneration, hypertensive retinopathy, glaucoma. They're all just variations on atherosclerosis. You know, hypertension is related to hypertension. Well, glaucoma is also related to hypertension. Cataracts are related to, dairy in particular. Can't handle the galactose. Also due to toxic chemicals like the preservatives in some contact lens solutions. Okay, well, atherosclerosis also plugs up the arteries to the Johnson, impotence. It damages the vasovasorum of the big arteries like the aorta. You get aortic aneurysms. The same risk factors for aortic aneurysm as for atherosclerosis. You plug up the arteries coming off the abdominal aorta, the back wall, the lumbar artery, you get spinal degeneration, ischemic spinal degeneration. Peter Rogers, MD, ischemic spine theory explains the whole thing. There are old papers on degenerative disc disease, but I've explained the whole thing. From DISH, diffuse idiopathic skeletal hyperostosis, to interbody fusion, OPLL, ossification of the posterior longitudinal ligament, to OLF, ossification of the ligamentum flavum, to Bostrop's disease. It's all the same damn thing, and it goes from the sacrum all the way up to the skull. And you can also get it from chemicals in I'm not going to get into that because we're talking about fat, but there's other mechanisms to cause spinal degeneration. Okay, it also increases your risk of cancer because of the ischemia, the lack of oxygen delivery. Peter Quo's paper showed, about 15 to 20%. Roy Swank was getting 30% drop in oxygen delivery with a high-fat meal in the brains of hamsters. You're going to deprive your cells of oxygen, and that can cause mitochondrial injury and lead to the Warburg effect, where the cell transforms itself into running on primarily anaerobic glycolysis, and that causes cancer, okay? In addition, high-fat diets suppress the immune system, and that also increases your risk of cancer. Because what is it that protects you from cancer? It's your immune system that removes cancer cells, so you want your immune system to function correctly. High-fat diets suppress your immune system. Your immune system also protects you from infections. So when you're eating high-fat diets, you're more vulnerable to infections. Not good, okay? Next thing is leaky gut. Leaky gut is caused by a lack of dietary fiber. High-fat diets are associated with a lack of dietary fiber, plus the fats themselves are toxic to the gut lining, okay? Vegetable oil, saturated fat, they're toxic to the gut lining. Now, abdominal pressure syndrome is because high-fat diets have a lack of fiber. So because of lack of fiber, you're constipated, and that means you strain at defecation. Valsalva maneuver to tighten up your abdominal muscles to sort of force the poop out, because instead of, a vegan has lots of fiber, their poops are sort of automatic, effortless, like cow patty, versus a paleo keto carnivore type. They're constipated and they strain at defecation. That causes back pressure, causing all kinds of abdominal diseases, varicose veins in the legs, varicocele in the scrotum, infertility, hemorrhoids, inguinal hernia, para-umbilical hernia. They also are at increased risk for diverticulitis from the back pressure, dried out rocks of stool blocking their appendix, appendicitis, the stomach popping into the chest, gastroesophageal reflux disease, which is associated with Barrett's esophagus, esophagitis, metaplasia, and esophageal cancer. We talked about resorbing more estrogen, and also you get more arthritis. A fatter person, that's more wear and tear on the joints. All this leaky gut's associated with causing all these autoimmune diseases, also causes additional mechanisms besides the classic molecular mimicry that Dr. McDougall talks about with autoantibody cross-reactivity. You also get all these other things like netosis with exposure of intracellular antigens like double-stranded DNA for autoantibody for lupus, etc. Okay, so McDougall wrote a very good essay, by the way, called Diet is the Only Hope for Arthritis. So anyways, the point I'm trying to make is there's tons of reasons why you want to minimize your dietary fat, okay? You really want to keep it to a minimum because, some people say, well, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Well, good luck, pal. I can tell you all day long, this is what I see. I almost never see the rare diseases. It's like every single patient I see has hypertension and diabetes and atherosclerosis, coronary artery disease, cerebrovascular disease. That's literally about 95% of them. This is what I would worry about. This is what will probably kill you. I also forgot to include on this list kidney failure. High-fat diets also increase your risk of kidney failure, proteinuria, because the most common causes of kidney failure are diabetes, hypertension, and atherosclerosis. Okay, and then the next thing in line is all the autoimmune diseases. So this also trashes your kidney. It destroys your body. Why would you want to do that? So I'm letting you know this is how it works. And by the way, high amounts of animal protein, they increase blood cholesterol, so they induce a hyperlipidemia. Animal protein's bad too, but the point of this was high-fat diets. And you can see, you can't win with high-fat diets. They damage too many systems. There's nothing that they could do that could overcome all these problems, okay? It's a turd. You can't polish a turd. There it is.